So, so yeah, just first of all, just want to say welcome, new and old. Well, not old, you know what I mean. Um, New and our regulars to this event. For those of you that don't know me, I am Holly Payberg-Toroya. I'm founder of Loving the Process, writing coach, and as they lovingly call me, story witch, because I just help writers, get out of their heads and into their hearts so that they can get to where the magic is. And yeah, now I'm most recently also partner with Kelly here at Humans on the Verge and the Village and all that good stuff. And I kind of begged her and cajoled her to do this talk tonight, because I felt like, we could all really use it. It was one of those things where, back in November, in the events that I won't name, I actually felt very, for the first time. I mean, most of the people that know me here can attest. I'm pretty jolly most of the time. It is just my perfect state of being. But I was uncharacteristic. I was feeling dark. We'll just say that. And Kelly grabbed me and pulled me right on up by her comments of like, well, clearly we have to start doing things differently. We can't keep going like this. We just gotta make a change. We gotta grab back our own narrative. We don't know what this is all about, but what we do know and what we, can control, if we focus on what we can control, we'll get through somehow. And I really, really took that to heart. It really helped me, to the point where I started making big changes quick. So in the last couple months, I have been giving myself permission to turn off what I don't want to listen to and amplify what I do want to listen to. As Kelly will say, not from the standpoint of putting your head in the sand at all. It's more like, I need a minute. I need to hear myself. I need to know what the heck I'm doing. I don't know. I need to, it's just too noisy out there. And it's already bore fruit. I've suddenly started, my writer voice has suddenly been freed, one that I've kept under wraps for a long time, that I've now been able to reframe and realize why it needs to come out, and have the courage to do so, because I'm not listening to the peanut gallery all the time. I'm like ready to rumble here in a good way, and to bring the light. So that's why I asked her. It helped me so much. I felt like, let's have a conversation for all of you that might need it, and clearly all of you that showed up here, felt like you might need it. And just to let you know what we're going to be up to this year too, because we we feel like it's an all hands on deck, like all the tools to make sure that we're just, bringing our light and being, our badass selves. We all have things we can do, and we got to know what that is. So without further ado, I'm gonna throw it over to Kelly, and she will introduce for any of the new people also, and we'll just get this party started.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started. I'm in a mood. I'm in a mood today. I'm in a good mood right now. You should have seen me at 8:30 this morning. It was not good. It was very ugly. But I'm in a good mood right now. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all. I'm Kelly Carlin-McCall. I've recently added back my hyphenated name because clearly I'm going through changes. And and oh boy, aren't we all? I am the founder of Humans on the Verge, which is now a 7-year long business for helping people transform their lives, especially people who are moving through transitions, transformations, the liminal space we like to talk about. The reason I started this space and this business and this work is because I've always been fascinated by what makes humans tick. My entire life, I've been thinking about these things. I suppose that all started probably because I was a small child sitting backstage listening to my father talk about what makes humans tick. So, as my dad would say, you don't lick it off the rocks, kid. So that's an Irish saying. So always fascinated with that. And I wanted to I'd been through a lot of transitions and transformations in my life, and I wanted to take a lot of the skills that I had learned and help other people create space for other people. And some of those skills I got by getting my master's in Jungian psychology. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I am a person who I call myself a depth psychologist. That's DEPTH, depth as in deep psychologist. That's a psychologist that really understands the unconscious, and especially not just the personal unconscious, but the collective unconscious. And that'll come into more light when we talk about the narrative part of all of this. I'm also someone who's been studying and practicing Buddhism for quite a long time, 25, about 25 years now. And and I'm also a writer and a performer. I have a memoir called A Carlin Home Companion. I had a solo show of the same name that I toured for about 6 years. I think 2017 was the last time, was my last show. And I'm also a TV producer and Emmy award winning documentary producer. Just,
And you wonder why you're tired.
I have to say that just because it was just the thrill of a lifetime. So I'm also a certified life coach. I do that too. So that's why I created Humans on the Verge. I have a podcast now called Humans on the Verge too. I've been a podcaster and a radio host on Sirius XM and things like that. Um so that's who I am. Oh, here comes Janda. And so what Avery was talking about earlier was Avery. Oh my God. See, this is how tired I am, you guys. I've had quite the 2 weeks, 4 months, 82 years. What Holly was talking about earlier about what I said to her in November is that before, and we're not going to get into politics today or the culture, but we are at the same time because it is part of the air we're breathing. Always, we're connected to everything. And before the election, 2 months before the election, October, September, I was thinking, and have always been thinking. I also study something called integral philosophy, which really kind of looks at the evolution of consciousness. And I look from a very, very, very broad lens into our culture. And I said to her and everyone who could listen to me, I said, no matter who wins in November, we need to do things differently because this is no longer working. It's not working for anybody. Nobody's happy. I mean, whether you win or lose politically and all that kind of stuff, nobody's happy. It's all very fraught. It all feels very precarious, whoever's in charge. And I was thinking about this earlier today because I don't like have a planned talk here or anything, but I was just thinking of like all the things about the times we are in right now. And part of it is that I think a lot about the counterculture and the counterculture movement. And of course, what went with that, what was the philosophical New Age movement, the spiritual movement of that, and the human potential movement, and how, for about 100 years, since really kind of Carl Jung and those people started talking about the personal unconscious, people got very curious about what makes us tick unconsciously. And then, in the 60s, we had this huge awakening, cultural awakening around freedom, independence, equality, diversity, all this kind of stuff. And it really changed the direction of the country. And pretty much since the 60s, we've been in this thing. But it's been like tolerable, right? I mean, like when I was a kid and Nixon was president, I had a poster of him. It's the best thing ever. Poster of him that because we hated him so much, just as much as we hate the guy now, with little squares in it that every square represented a single day of his presidency. And every day, let's see, it was 1972. I was 9. I would blot out a block every day until the whole, well, guess what? He got impeached in the middle. So like, I wish I'd kept the poster because we only got to a certain point and then it was like covered. So the reason I bring that up is because it's like, people, this is not new. We've been doing this shit a long fucking time.
You live
And
long enough. Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing reason I know this too, and I'm not saying this and I don't bring him in, but he is my dad and he did influence me a lot, is, what have been people been asking me the last 8 years in America? What would your father say about all of this? What would your father say about this guy? What would your father say about this, and this? And I just keep telling them, well, all you have to do is listen to his material because he's been saying it for 35 years or
Yeah.
50 years. So come on, people. He saw it then. And we would all go, oh, it's so funny. It's so true. Yes. Let's go get another latte. Like, he saw the writing on the wall. A lot of people have seen the writing on the wall. So this shit ain't new. It's just that we are finally coming to a place where the system needs to go through a certain, this is my belief about this. You don't have to, but this is the way I see it. I studied with Joanna Macy and systems theory and the great turning and all this kind of stuff. The system needs to reach a certain amount of chaos in order to kind of fall apart a little bit so that it can come back into a better order, a different order. And our country's been through that a few times. Revolution, Civil War, Depression, the World Wars, things like that. Like we've done this before. Some major changes have happened. It doesn't feel exactly like this, but there's been a lot of chaos in our country, and there's a lot of been a chaos in human history. So, but these lovely creatures that we are, who many of us grew up in the 60s or came of age in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or whatever. This is our first kind of, unless you were an adult in the 60s, a full-on adult. I wouldn't even consider my parents an adult in the 60s. They weren't acting like it. So, so I think about that. I think about the long history of it. And yet, this is my first time being inside of something like this. I mean, we did something like this 4 to 8 years ago. Uh, but it didn't feel quite like this. So this is intense and all of
Feels
that.
ratcheting up.
Yes, it's a ratcheting, you could say. And when he got elected, I thought to myself, well, I guess America's not done with this conversation yet. And I really feel that way. I really feel from like the 10,000 foot, or like my dad used to say, like my dad's like, I live on Jupiter. I watch Earth from Jupiter. Like from the Jupiterian perspective, it's like, yeah, Earth's working shit out, and that little country over there is working shit out too. So, as much as my nervous system can't hear that and is not happy about that, I do have a perspective of that, which does help me. But as a human being living here, I know also that whatever happened for me, nervous system wise and self identity wise, from 2016 to about 2022, putting the first 2 years of the pandemic in there, I nervous system, Kelly's like, I'm in charge of Kelly's nervous system. I get to take care of her. Um, I can't let this nervous system do that again. I can't let it do what it did, which was, well, during the pandemic, it was basically jigsaw puzzles and vodka for 2 years. So I just can't do that again, especially the
Coping of
vodka part.
champions.
Although we are doing lots of jigsaw puzzles right now, but the vodkas, no. But, and the funny thing is, between 2016 and 2020 is when I kind of ended my solo show career and launched Humans on the Verge, which used to be called Women on the Verge. So, some big changes happened during that and positive things. And I moved forward and I grew as an adult and all that kind of stuff. So I know it's possible. But a reason I say all of that is to just kind of put some perspective. Like one of the things we talk about at Humans on the Verge is perspective. What lens are you looking at your life from or the world from? And we know we can put on lots of different ones. And we know that the minute we go on social media, you'll get lots of them. You'll get lots of perspectives. Some are helpful, And some are like, that's not helpful at all. You're just being an asshat, as Holly would say. So there's that. So what we're in right now is we're in um cultural war. Capitalism is culture is and then we have the way we talk to each other, which right now is on social media, which is so it's from there, you could say shit show. Looks like a shit show right there.
Yes.
And yet it's 2025. It's the beginning of the year. It's February. I mean, I keep thinking it's the beginning of the year, right? I mean, like, wasn't ready till mid-January, and then I'm like, I think maybe we're like mid-February we'll be ready to start the year. But we do have a year, and we have a life to live. Each one of us here has a life to live. We have shit to do. We have places to go, people to
People to
see,
take care of. Yeah.
things to make,
Hmm.
things to build, things to create, um, services to offer, hugs to give, rants to write, solo shows to do,
Advent calendars to create.
Advent calendars to create. Oh my God, yes. We have stuff to do. And so what I was saying to Holly was, we cannot let it's such a fun look. I've never been here before too, but every cell of my body is telling me we cannot let the times necessarily tell us who to be and what to do and how to do it right now. We have to have some agency and autonomy and authority over our own lives. And the very nature of what is happening with power in our country right now is the way they are going about it, and the way that people with that kind of mindset use power is to take people's agency and authority and autonomy away. And so it's not even necessarily conscious. It's just how they wield power. People like that wield power by just assuming you have no right to power.
Mhm.
And so we have to take our power back in every level. Uh, and we have to do it differently. We've been trying to take our power back with them by doing this culture war shit,
Mhm.
which did not work. It's part of the reason we're here. That's a whole nother fucking conversation. You can listen to my podcast at the beginning of March with Steve McIntosh. We talk a lot about that. Uh, but so we need to do it differently. But I don't work with people in the political world or the cultural world. I work with people in their personal lives. And I help people. My biggest thing is to help people get the courage and to have the courage and use their own courage to have their own agency and their own autonomy and their own authority. That's the work I do. And one of the ways I do that is talking about perspectives, but also talking about narrative, the story. What story are we living? So there's lots of ways we could write this movie going on right now in our lives. Lots of ways, tons of ways. We could write it from the political point of view. We could write it from the cultural point of view. Uh, but all I know how to do is, because I'm a personal storyteller, a memoirist, and someone who helps people navigate their own lives, is from the personal narrative. What story are we living? And that's always a question we ask and help people sort through, because most of us are living out a story unconsciously from all of the good training we had in our families of origin. As much as I loved my parents, I had some interesting training. I'm sure you could all tell amazing stories about your training also. So part of it's that, right? What narrative did we get trained in our personal narratives, in our training, in our lifetime? What narrative does the culture make us? What box do we fit into with that? That's the whole point of uh identity stuff and DEI and all. I mean, it's everyone gets a chance to tell their own stories, right? What does the culture want to tell our story? We want to tell our own stories, right? But really, also, the other thing that I have found going from like basically 35 on up to 35, I was a mess, a real mess. But up to 35 on, when I started really adulting, I've noticed that I have had to shift my narrative a lot in my life, and that's why I use this. And I studied this. I studied this at Pacifica, where I got my master's. I studied the hero's journey and I studied the heroine's journey, which are two slightly different versions of the narrative. And so what's important about knowing what your narrative is and what's the story you're wanting to live into is that determines your choices, your actions, your mindset, your beliefs, your understanding of the destination of where you're going, even understanding how you're getting there. What character are you playing in your own life? Are you playing the victim? Are you playing the hero? Are you playing the rescuer? Like, are you playing none of that? Are you playing the observer? Are you whatever it is? So really understanding that is super essential. And even though things, I mean, I just heard yesterday that now they're saying there's a meteor heading towards Earth.
There is.
It's got like a
Why
1%
wouldn't it?
chance of hitting us in 8 years. And I'm thinking, of course it does. That
Yeah.
movie, Look Up, that's what it reminds me of. But um, I, one of the hardest things that I have to tell people, I think, these days is even with all of this going on, we still need to be able to turn towards ourselves and figure out what are we up to and what are we doing in 2025. And the thing I told Holly in November was this. I said, look, if we don't stay with our work that we're doing in the world and understand what it is and the impact it potentially can, if we don't stick to that in some way, and we don't dream something bigger or better for ourselves personally, that then gets to impact the world. Everyone here on this call are people who want to impact the world in some positive way. I mean, we all wake up in the morning wanting to make the world a better place. Believe it or not, it's part of my Buddhist training that I had to do. Think of the most evil person you can think of and know that they wake up in the morning wanting to do good for their grandchildren. Okay, gonna do that. I did get there with Dick Cheney actually. It's harder these days. Not with him. But there is this sense of like it's not sticking our, like Holly was saying, it's not sticking our heads in the sand necessarily, but we do have to learn to turn away from the noise, to turn away from the chaos, and to stay on our path, to stay focused.
Can do. That's what you told the what we can do of it all.
Yes, and that's right because I don't have I I can't go put back together the things that they are dismantling. I personally can't do that. I can vote for people that I hope can fight for it and all of that, and we're all having a discussion about that, of course, in the world. I don't have the levers of those levers of power. I only have so many levers of power in the culture and politically in my life, and those might get more and more radical as time goes on. I don't know. We shall see. We'll see how things unpack. But I do know what is in my power, what is in my agency and my authority and my autonomy. And so that's important. And that's hard. It's hard during these times to do that because I mean, I have had to take all the social media off my phone. I did it. I'm a Twitter girl. Like I was a Twitter girl forever. I've got 70, 80,000 followers on there. I went over to Blue Sky, great, but I even had to take Blue Sky off my phone because it's like I cannot do it like this anymore. This
Mm.
is how I've been doing it since 2009 when I joined frickin' Facebook or whatever. I've been off of Facebook for years. But, it's like I have to take my space back. And I'm a writer and I'm coming back to my writing after 6 years of not writing. I have to have my space to write. These things can feel like, a little bit like, oh, keeping the world at bay. And yet, and I'm going to bring him in one more time just because he is my role model, my dad did not participate in the world a lot. My
Mhm.
dad worked on his craft all fucking day long. And if he wasn't working on his craft, he was flying somewhere to tell people about the things that he had just come up with while working on his craft.
And he did it
Uh,
without the internet, I'm just realizing.
and without the internet, he was on he watched CNN 24 hours a day. This is pretty much true. But yes, there was a little bit of internet. Yeah, he died in 2008. But he was an artist. And so whether you're an artist or not, it doesn't matter. You've got shit to do and the world needs you to do it.
Mhm.
And so that's my pitch. That's my pitch here today is really about that. And so we want to open up a little bit of discussion here too. If anyone's got any thoughts about this or want to share what they're doing to kind of balance this. And then Holly and I will tell you a little bit about what we're doing. We're really excited about some stuff that might kind of do this for you right now in this particular conversation because it's about the narrative, but all of our work ultimately is about the narrative. But oh, and I found a Victor. Are you all familiar with Viktor Frankl? Do you know who he is? Yeah. Okay, so Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp in World War II, and he came out of it and ended up writing a bunch of different books, but one of them, his most famous one, is Man's Search for Meaning. And there's a lot of it's a big, intense book, but it's an incredible book. And there's 10,000 quotes of his that are great, but this is the one that I wanted to share with you, uh, which is intense. He says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. We are, in some ways, stuck with a situation that we have some agency over, but not a hell of a lot. But in order to meet this moment, not just collectively and in this grand experiment of this country we live in, which has been flawed from day one, no doubt, but it's still, as they say, democracy is still the best form of government than all the other ones. Uh, but but we have to step forward as heroes and heroines in our own life.
Oh,
And what I believe that means is not just show up in spaces to protect people who need protection or to fight for what we believe in collectively and politically and things like that. Of course, that needs to happen. But really, we need to show up every morning on the front lines of our life and decide what is this one precious life about and what am I here to do and how can I show up more? And so that's my call to action this year is no matter what, we've got work to do and we've got things to make and build and create and transform and entertain and whatever it is. And um, I'm so glad you guys are all here today in this space, but I'm also so glad that you're in our little space called the village because we are creating a community of people who are builders and makers and creators and transformers and alchemists and healers and all sorts of people, but people who want to hang out in a space together where we can inspire each other and not have the extra noise of social media and the culture and politics. We understand that's going on, but to have a deeper conversation here and one where we can encourage each other to remember who we are and what we're up to. And so that's for me. I'm going to say that's it. I'm saying
yeah.
enough. I've got enough to say.
And
I
I
want to
want
hear
to
from you
add one
guys.
thing to that
Good.
because you made me think of it. And that is just that one of the things that has to stop right away is we do a fair amount of, I see it in the coaching all the time, internal gaslighting of ourselves, telling ourselves that whatever it is that's ours to do, the things that we can do aren't important enough.
Yeah.
That's another reason for kind of coming in like this right now is because you look out there and you're like, oh, that person's doing this and that person's doing that. And I'm just, I hear
I'm
that.
just me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't, and it's like, well, you're a mom that's raising amazing humans that will make the world better. Or you're out there smiling while you work, and causing ripple effects. Who knows? There's a lot of things that and I see a lot of women especially have been for so long treated like their particular gifts aren't even gifts at all, like externally, because they're intuitive, they're nurturing, they're quiet, and it's like, yeah, we have to,
Well,
we,
and that's part of that cultural narrative, right? And the men too. Like men get
Mhm.
fed a big cultural narrative, which you're
Yeah,
only a man if you fill in the blank.
yeah,
You're only a woman if you fill in the blank. You're only a human if you fill in the blank. Whatever it is, all these roles,
yeah.
these very tight, small roles that people want us to live
Get to be
into.
angry and funny, like the men I hear,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. And and then with social media, it's ridiculous on social media. Now you have to, trust me, being someone who does transformational work, and I go on Instagram and I just, search the hashtag coach or coaching. I just want to barf. Like, it's like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. I don't have my brand perfect, and I don't have my fancy little video thing that I do with my little mantra every day or something like that. Like
Intro.
I'm just awkward hippie girl, don't really want to brush my hair on a Tuesday morning girl. And so I go on Instagram like that. Because I don't care. So I would love to hear in the chat a little bit from everybody about what is the one thing that you wish you could, or how do you feel about this time? Do you feel like um, turning towards what you want and what you're up to in these times, is that difficult for you? Is that hard? Is that a challenge? Or are you excited about the prospect of that? I'm just curious about how people are feeling about functioning. Like, I swear to God, like just functioning. You guys are all up to stuff. You've got dreams, or you've got big careers already, or you're in the middle of a shifting of a career, or you've got a desire that you've had for fucking 20 years and you want to get to it. And now this shit's happening. Like, I just want to know the story for yourself a little bit. And if you wanted to share, oh, good.
Brett's
We've got some people
excited.
here. Brett's excited, moving forward quickly. Awesome. Wonderful.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah,
fires.
Cree's in LA with me too. Honey, I'm in LA. I don't know how many LA people are here. Our brains are fucked right now because of the fires. I mean, Holly had to kind of chat me off the bit of the edge of the thing
Well,
today.
and the funny thing I'm seeing in LA from a distance right now is that a lot of my friends in LA are like feeling so sad for the victims of the fire. I'm like, sweet peach, you are the victims of the fire
Yeah,
also. You don't
yeah,
have to be like in the center of the flames to be
it
a
it's
victim.
that survivor's guilt thing too that you
Yeah.
have. Like my house didn't burn down, but my horse barn and my beloved Will Rogers State Park burned down. And it's like it's a huge part of my psyche in my life. So I feel very weird. Let's see. Sue, I've been stuck thinking about food security. Yeah, so people are like getting into survival mode, food security, World War II, victory gardens, which would be a great thing anyway, whether we need them or not. My God, we need more gardens in our life.
Well, and
Oh,
that's
I love
interesting.
that.
That's your go-to is the food. You might be somebody that is one of your gifts.
And absolutely. And oh my God, getting to volunteer at Golden Gate Park Gardens, like sign me up for that. That's beautiful. Elise, very strange. Sometimes I feel so full of love and care. And then I get a little guilty. Chandra, yes, this is part of it too. This is the I've got something going on, and I'm lucky. I'm privileged enough to not be at the edge of survival mode right now in some way. And yet this is, if we have that privilege in our life right now, then that's our job, is to make our thing go forward, because in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, the world's going to need us to have moved along into that place. That's what I keep reminding myself too, because I would love to get under the covers and never come out again and just watch the repair shop.
And that guilt will hook you. And then next thing you know, you're, not building up your full power that you need for these times. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And Danny says it's difficult to care for myself when others seem to be struggling. And, it's just such a fucking, thing that we always say here, it's just, but we always do say, like, you cannot care for others in the world if you do not put your oxygen mask on first. And I know it's an overused metaphor, but it is the truth. It is the truest one. And that Wayne Dyer used to say something which really hit me one day because I have major privilege guilt because of how I grew up. And I was also made very aware from day one of my privilege in the world. And so it screwed me up in not a good way. It like didn't, it kind of cut my legs out from underneath me in some ways. But Wayne Dyer always said you cannot be poor enough to help the poor, and you cannot be hungry enough to help the hungry. And I really, really took that to heart, that by torturing ourselves, by removing our own resources because other people are resourced is a form of insanity in some ways. Because we need oxygen, and for people who are builders and creators and healers in this space, and artists and all sorts of people, we are the oxygen for the world. Without our work, the world does not have oxygen. Imagine if all the artists gave up. Pick the era, pick the country, pick the fascism, whatever it was. Imagine if the artists gave up. Where would we be? Right? How would the world be functioning? How would we have any meaning in our life? Right? So we are the meaning makers, and it's really important. And sometimes we are also the protectors and the healers or the creators and the builders. But we are the oxygen for the world, and we need to build things to keep the oxygen going for others.
Absolutely.
Some people feel excited. These are some seriously difficult times, Jill. Good to see your face here, darling. Disassociated, yes, we're all feeling that. Uh-huh. Stephanie is a doctor. I tend to see the downstream effects that leads to some anticipatory anxiety. So we're all feeling this. I am not, immune to any of this too. I've been in a deep depression since the fires. I mean, really, really hard. Despair and depression, showing up here today, doing the work, having the conversations. Um, yeah, yeah.
Maximilian says,
Using my Irish passport. Yes, Maura. I know Bob and I are thinking, well, we're visiting in July for sure. Um, yes, Chanda. Chanda's a healer. She's one of the healer groups here, feeling like it's more important than ever to focus on what I can do and am doing and pushing the message of creativity in the face of madness and chaos. Beautiful. Yes.
Maximilian says, I feel that people are either growing more into a herd mentality with conviction or finding and getting to know their individual voices and unique powers. The gap between the experts and the ones that learn seems to widen.
Yeah, and everyone's on their path. The people who are doing herd mentality, that's part of what happens during scarcity and fear. And that's why all of our nervous systems are doing what they're doing. And a lot of the stuff that's coming up here, which is like, I'm disembodying, I'm eating Cheetos all day, I'm depressed, whatever it is, we're in survival mode. And so our job, though, is to find those things that help us connect to the lifeline every day. So for me, you figure out how to calm yourself. And once you calm yourself, then you get the clarity to move forward with the courage to do it, right? But you have to calm yourself first, right? And all the chaos, like I said earlier, the way people are using power right now, the people in power, the way they're using power with all the chaos, whether they mean to or not, it's about taking our power away. And partly how they do that is by creating chaos, which creates fear. And so then we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are our four choices. We want more than those four choices, guys. These choices aren't going to get us anywhere. These choices are going to get us. We're not going to be happy with our lives in a year or two if these are our only choices. And we've all lived through this. The pandemic, all of that happened, right? We've been through this, and that's the good news. That's what I'm excited about during this time, actually, because we've already been through the first time with that guy, and then we were through the pandemic. You know what? That's why I know we can do this differently this time, because we're like, all right, this is the new human. The new human's like, all right, it's a little chaos. Let's surf on top of the chaos and get shit done.
And it might take us a hot minute to figure out what that new thing is. Steve was saying functioning is harder since it's harder to know what the truth is about anything. But what we've been talking about, Kelly and I, is that you know what your truth is, and
Yep.
that will keep you grounded as best as possible. I mean, it's not the whole enchilada, but it's
Yes,
the tether.
truth is now I mean it's interesting what's happening around truth, and we can't get into that conversation. That's a whole nother thing, and I hope to do a podcast about that. But And part of my Steve McIntosh conversation is actually a little bit about that. From each perspective, believes how it sees the world as truth. And we are in a multi-perspective time in our lives, big time. So truth is very, and then there's like the hard truth of like the material physics, Newtonian physics. But then, Einstein came along and went, that's not all true also. So, it's crazy. But Holly is right. It's about finding your truth so that you can remember what that is so you can walk forward. And that's always what our work is at Humans on the Verge. The whole reason I called the business On the Verge is because our old truth, our old personal truth kind of ran out of steam or no longer works for us. And that's part of the heroine's journey, which is we wake up one day and go, is this my life? Is this my house? Is this my beautiful wife? Like the Talking Head song. And we realize what used to satisfy us no longer does. Happens a lot in midlife. Sometimes it happens at 25. Definitely happens in your 50s. Big shit changes in your 50s. And that's normal. That's called evolution. That's called the evolution of consciousness. Yay. Your truth is going to shift. And what we like to do is to help you get more and more of the white noise removed so that you get a clearer, more authentic version of this truth to walk forward in. And that's all the work we do here. And that's what we always talk about. And if you're on the village and you see stuff and we're posting stuff, it's usually some part of that conversation. But what Holly and I wanted to just let you guys know a little bit in case some of you are interested, and some of you are already planning on joining us, is that we have an event coming up soon. And so we wanted to just let you know about that. And the easiest way I can do that is to do the dreaded share some slides, because otherwise it just keeps me on track.
Well, it's too much information otherwise, because yeah.
So here's the deal. You guys are all in the village here, which is amazing. And we're super excited because we've just launched the village. And I'm getting hot and sweaty just thinking about it. It's so exciting.
No, we are excited because we want to do this with people. We don't want to be alone in this,
Yeah, no, and we've been
changing the
doing,
narrative.
and we've been working in small cohorts for about 6 years, and it's been wonderful. But I'm a girl who loves a good party and a good village. So we're excited to just have this village. So that's like the main space where everything is. And then inside of that, we have different things that we offer. And I'm sure you guys have poked around a bit in there. Some of you have been around for a while. But one thing we do twice a year is we have two big courses that we teach. In this time of year, which I call midwinter, by the way, we do True Story. And then in the fall, we do something called True Self. And so Holly and I are gearing up to introduce to you True Story. And I'm going to just get my little slides here. I think I can share, right, Holly?
You should be able to. You're a co-host.
Okay, good. All right, there it is. Okay, good. So I found this quote today. I thought this was really great. This quote just said it all for me. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God. First of all, I love that picture too. It's a medieval alchemist painting, which I love. One of the functions of art is to give people the words to know their own experience. Ursula, as you know, is an author. Storytelling is a tool for knowing who we are and what we want. So the author does that, the fiction writer, the screenplay writer, right? The person who writes literature does that for us and helps us, we get to experience our human experience through their art. But Holly and I stand by this other part, as does Avery also, who's not here today, which is that storytelling is, and we are hardwired for storytelling. Our brains, how we make sense of the world, and how we make meaning, is a tool for knowing who we are and what we want. And so that's what True Story is about, is helping you discover both of those things, really who you are and what you want. And so we have this, it's a weekend retreat, 2.5 day retreat. And then it's four group calls over 8 weeks that we have. So that's what it is. But
Really
it
deep
really,
into it. Yeah.
yeah, and to integrate the material that you do over the weekend, because we like to integrate. It's part of what we love to do is to integrate. But
Also,
every
it takes a hot minute. It's an onion peeling situation.
Yeah, and I just want to let you know that everything we do, whether it's on a little PowerPoint thing like this, we spend a lot of time really making sure the language is right and true and feels aligned with our values. I mean, I'm a writer. This is what I do in the world is I pick the language. And so for me, authenticity, which I know is a fucking overused word in these times, but there's no other authentic word that really fits it. You know what it means for you. It's that thing that fits you perfectly. And that's what I'm all about. It took me years to find my authentic voice and to have the courage to share it with the world. I do it through storytelling, I do it through writing, and I do it through this work too, obviously. And I do it through speaking and all that kind of stuff. But it took me forever to find my way. And that's why for me, this is the work I do for help to help others to create space for that. And so inside this work that what we do, um, there's some particular people you'll self-identify through some of these things, which is you've possibly lost the thread of your purpose and meaning in these particular chaotic times. I think we're all feeling a little bit of that right now. Some people in the thing did that. Um, Sometimes we're just sick and tired of ourselves. Our old excuses, they keep coming up. Oh, I still haven't written that novel. God, it's been 20 years. It's like, well, are you going to be happy on your deathbed with that reality? Are you going to kick yourself on your deathbed too? Um, we put off our dreams or our plans or what we want to build because we need to take care of other people or it's not practical or we're afraid of failing or afraid of success. That's usually what gets in our way. Um, Sometimes it's just a vague hunger. I find that a lot with people who are kind of coming into a transition, like they know that something is coming up for them, but they don't know quite what it is yet. Totally valid place to be in your life. It happens to me all the time. It's an intuitive hit that you get. Um, Same thing with like the changes. Like I just know there's something brewing in my future. Do you want to come meet it?
What it is yet, willing to try to find.
Exactly, exactly. And then of course the authentic thing, which is important, as I said earlier. So these are the kind of the folks that come to do this course in particular, kind of can I identify with some of that. Like there's something inside of them that, and even if you know what that thing is, it's the getting it out and moving it forward and having a path plan map for it that can get a little tricky. And then, of course, the cost of doing nothing, which I hate the cost of anything. I never want to talk about the cost, but I have to tell you, the only time in my life I've ever gotten off my ass to do shit is because I let myself feel the pain of this. And this was like my solo show. When I did that, I mean, I could have just said, no, I'm not going to do this. And then I thought, seriously, if I don't do this, will I regret it for the rest of my life? And I absolutely knew I would. And so I had to face that cost. So another year of not moving towards what you want. Or there's the other thing we do when we don't really pay attention to our what we really want to be up to is we end up rebelling or sabotaging. And we use outside excuses to do that.
Never done
Um,
that before.
yeah, absolutely. And we're kind of in that situation now. We're like, oh, well, the world's falling apart. I can't do that now. Okay. What about in 5 years when the world needs your work to have been on the earth for 5 years, and no matter what shape it's in? And then there's just the emotional and psychological dependence. Sometimes some of us are psychologically dependent on others or emotionally or financially. Sometimes we want to make that. I had to make a huge shift 8 years ago in my life around that. Less satisfaction. And the thing I know is that if we're not doing what really connects us to our passion, no matter what, some form of burnout or anxiety or depression will be in your future. And anxiety and depression can come from a lot of places. But I also know that when I wasn't fulfilling and really actively moving towards what I knew I wanted in my life, I was a hot mess. And that is an actual psychological term. Uh, So our true story course that we love is, like I said, 2.5 day weekend. We'll walk you through that in a minute. 4 group calls. It really is help. I just want to say, Holly and I got together and we're geeking out over the heroine's journey and this particular book called The Virgin's Promise because we both love narrative. And then Holly went and uh, did her magic wizard thing. And those of you who work with Holly know what I'm talking about. And came back with all of these amazing prompts to help us to discover like what's really living inside of us and how to like move it forward. It's absolutely incredible what she did. And it does. It helps you reframe the past and the present. Um, and the way we've designed it, it's like you're kind of no longer inside of your brain that tells you no all of the time. And you're in what my friend Rick Overton, who's a comedian, always says, you've entered the yes field. That's what these prompts do. They let you enter the yes field where everything is like, oh, allowable and okay. And I'm allowed to be with my gifts and my dreams and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that Holly and I love most about this, because we're creatives, is that there's no goal making and there's no goal planning. You just get to dream and you get to do it without the pressure of doing yet. There's no doing, there's literally like the safe space to do dreaming.
Yeah.
Full permission dreaming, even if you already are a dreamer, to even unleash it more, to like take the last bit of the straps off.
And you get to find out how much was already there. I mean, we have a lot of our students here who've been through this, but it's like it really does. This whole process has you see your life in a way it was always there. You just might not have seen it that way before, and all of a sudden, whoa, what's possible to play with now?
Yeah, Holly beta tested this on me and a few of my friends over a weekend, and I had been creatively blocked for 5 years, and she unblocked me creatively. I mean, I had been stuck. I could not write a word, and suddenly I was able to see myself as a creative again, which was a miracle. So this is a little bit what we do. What we do is we have 8 prompts that we take you through the weekend. And so these are kind of the things we do. Part of it's visioning forward in this very unique way. You won't even understand the vision forward, but we take you there anyway. We also go into the backstory of your life a little bit to unearth the true desires. We then see a little bit about what gets in our way. We explore what's possible. We understand the permission that needs to be granted. We also see what it's going to take to get there. Then we also see the impact we're going to have on the world. And then we get to celebrate that we've actually made this. So we are living in the deep imagination over the weekend. We are taking you into another time and space within your own psyche, and you are accessing from the most creative, generative place that is on earth. It is the place where geniuses come up with their ideas. It's where Einstein came up with his ideas. It's where the human possibility lives. And we're going to take you to your own personal chamber to do all of this. And then over a few weeks after that, 8 weeks after that, we integrate and unpack it with you. But it is an incredible journey of your own psyche and your own destiny, really. This is really what we're in touch with.
And that permission thing, oh,
It's
that
huge.
permission thing is the turning point. It's like a lot of what we do right now, we feel like we're not in choice in this world, but we actually are. And when you start to give yourself permission to, yeah,
And
anyway.
you can see that the only thing that is keeping you from that permission is some other story you have about permission.
Yes.
It's another narrative. The non-permission narrative is always inside of us. Oh, well, it's too much time, or it would piss off my mother, or my kids would hate me, or it's too expensive, or I need to, or the world is ending, or the meteor is coming in 8 years. Like whatever it is, we've got, but this is a full permission place. And this is really, those of you who know Holly's work, and those of you who don't know, this is really where her wizardry comes in because she's a person who can create space, full permission. It's incredible. Anyway, this is the times we're going to do a weekend retreat. It's Friday night, the 21st, and then it's Saturday and Sunday. It's not all day. It's you're going to get some prompts, you're going to work through them, then we're going to come in and we're going to check in on each other, and then you're going to go. So you've got time to do other things during the weekend, but we do encourage those of you who want to tell the world to fuck off for a weekend,
Do
do,
that.
do that instead, because this is really about you.
Yeah, you won't be on Zoom all the time. You can
No.
actually listen to the prompts from your phone and sit by a tree and do it, and then you check
Yes.
in with
And then
us.
you come and check in. You can even just check in by your phone on Zoom also and just chat with us. Like you don't have to be on a computer, you don't have to be plugged
Get your
in.
snacks, get your jammies, get your all the things that you like. You're like, I'm going into the shed. Don't anyone bother me for a whole weekend.
Yeah, unless you're bleeding or right, a limb has been cut off, do not bother me. Which I always love when mothers say that. And then we're going to have 4 group calls where
Your candles, get your, whatever.
we're going to do 2 prompts per each call, and we're going to unpack them and help you integrate them into your life.
By then
And
you'll
these
be besties with all the people that you do this with, so you'll want to see them also. And
Yeah, and we're in the village already, so you're already
yeah.
hanging out with your besties there. This is the actual little program. As you can see, is a little few prompts. You get 3 hours to do 2 prompts. It's more than enough time. You can do a little, you can go for a walk, you can do a little more. We're going to come back, we're going to unpack some stuff. This is kind of the schedule for that. And then these are the dates for the Tuesday calls when we get together. And these are all 6:30 p.m. is Eastern time for you Pacific people.
Mhm.
And this was also Eastern time.
Did
No?
we? Did we? I think. Yes,
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe. Yes.
Um, oh, and then there's a few people who took this course before, which of course we only picked the people who loved it. Just kidding. Everyone loved it.
I have had a
Actually,
100% success rate at this.
Actually, I think everyone did. Everyone was blown away by the course. I mean, they actually because it's just really innovative and it's very different.
Can't promise
Very
there's no tears in the middle, but that's only healing tears. It'll be fine.
absolutely, 100%. And know also for those of you who are writers and are working on fiction, Holly has a separate track. So Holly and I are both going to be leading the groups. The prompts are the same, but you can either work on it for your life and do it as a personal development thing, which is we really encourage everyone to do that just because it's really, really helpful. But if you feel like you're kind of okay in that zone and you are working with a story and want to work a little bit on that, Holly has a way of unpacking that so that you can work on your protagonist with your main character. So there are writers in this room because Holly does have a lot of her clients here, and that's what they do.
Yeah,
And
so
so
you
they're,
don't
they're
have to do the personal growth track if you're like, I'm pretty good. Um,
I know
I
where I'm going. I know what I'm
Yeah,
doing. I'm
but I
okay.
do need to break this emotional arc of my protagonist in a story I'm writing. It's
And I want to say that as a person who's a memoir writer and a personal storyteller, if you are looking to do a solo show or a memoir or something like that, this is a great exercise to do this with because this then can become, which it did for me, an outline for your solo show or memoir or personal story writing because you'll get 10,000 different ideas out of it.
yeah,
And I will be doing memoir and personal storytelling coaching, group coaching inside of the creative world that Holly runs over there on the thing.
yeah.
So that is that. So the price is for you guys because you're all in the village, it's 539 and it's full price is 750. The early bird price for people in the public is 599, but because you're in the village, you get it for 539 or you can do a payment plan, 3 payments of 200. This price is not sticking around forever. This is part of life because we are offering it to the public. And we did send out a little early bird stuff for people, but it's going up to 750 tomorrow night at midnight. And that would be the latest midnight, the Pacific time. And Holly will put links in the thing, but we've got question time too.
Yeah, and
Um,
we'll also email you, but if you want to grab it now.
and and so you know also what you get with this is you get a full year free in the village. And for those of you who are in the village and have already paid for it, we'll talk. And also somewhere during the course, during those 8 weeks when we're unpacking it with the group calls on the Tuesdays, you can get a 15-minute, if you sign up today, or in the next 24 hours, you'll get a group call, you'll get an individual call with Holly or I, just to check in with your process and where you're going and how's it working for you and are you stuck? And I mean, obviously on the group calls, we're going to do that, but some private one-on-one time, especially if it's something that's like, oh, I'm really getting clarity about this now and, would love to talk to you about that and get some support. We would love to have that conversation. That's always my favorite time in these courses is to talk to everyone individually. And so with that price, you get the full village. And in the village, Holly, tell us about the village.
Ah, yes, the village. A lot of the folks here know the fun thing about the one of the main features of the village is, first of all, it is your what you wish social media would be, where there's true support and love and nourishing and sharing of ideas. Nobody's trying to save anybody. We're all just sharing and walking each other home kind of thing. But most importantly, a lot of the folks are realizing that come to the daily practice. It's Monday through Friday. 8 a.m. both East Coast and 8 a.m. West Coast. So you have a choice. You can do both. It doesn't matter. But basically, what we do is we show up and clock in our hour of time for ourselves. So I give you a little inspirational thing at the top and sprinkle you with some love. And then we just turn off our cameras. Some people show up late and just, hair a mess and just,
That's me, a hair
yeah.
mess, eating my oatmeal, but with
In
my
our jammies, in our robes, but everyone clocks in. And there's something about that discipline of giving yourself that first hour of your day for you and whatever your creative heart wants before you move into all the other shit you got to do for the day, that even just that 1 hour a day can change everything. It did for me when I first started doing that, and it's doing that
A-
for a lot of other
and I
folks.
and I want to add to that, which is that 1 hour a day that you give yourself at the beginning is the very thing more than anything else ever for the rest of your life is the one thing that will make you feel like you were living your life.
Yeah, it roots you
And
right.
it will help, and it will literally help your mental health because even though it's been dark here in LA with the fires and everything, because I'm showing up and I'm working on a story that I've been writing about the fires on some level, I was inspired to write it. I feel like I'm doing my work in the world, my creative work in the world, which then at the end of the day, when I look back and I think, you know what, I spent an hour on that story today.
Mhm.
My voice is out there, right? So, and action, there's a lot of dreamers in this group. We're all a bunch of dreamers. We're creatives, we're healers. We love to fantasize and dream and all that kind of things. We're special. It's our specialty. But doing is everything because if we're not doing it, we're not actually doing the next step. There's the imagining and then there's the doing. I mean, imagine if people just only thought about things and never made them. I wouldn't be able to sit on a chair right now because someone would have hogged the idea of chair and never made one. I know it's a crazy example, but I think about it all the time. So doing every day, a little bit of doing every day. So that's some of the joys of being in the village.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
but
it's
what
your badass way of taking back your narrative too, because you spend that hour with you in the morning, and then the next 23 hours can go off the rail, but you reset. You can never go too far because you've reset the next day.
And you see faces, the same faces every morning, and they
Yes.
become part of your community. Anyone else
Yes.
who goes to any kind of like 12-step meetings or, has a regular brunch or whatever is, this isn't important. We are humans. We need our human faces. We need to know that we belong somewhere. And so the cool news is that you're doing this cool work, this deeper work, if you join us for True Story or anything that we end up doing that we offer here. And then in the morning, we're also showing up and we're doing our personal journaling or we're doing our creative work or, someone's baking a cake, whatever your jam is, whatever is the thing that you need to do in order to make it yours. Um, so I'm going to undo this. I know we're past the hour, but if anybody has any questions, Holly and I are here to stay. And also, just want to look in the chat here. No, Nancy, if you are a current client of ours and have been a current client for years, as always, these courses, if you're a coaching client, these courses are free and are part of the package that comes with your coaching,
In fact,
your
you're
coaching
already in there.
program. And
So
yeah, and some people we've already put everyone in there who's in the OG group. So So any questions about how it works, or anybody who's done it already wants to say anything about, um,
Should we stop the recording now and just flip it over to
yes, we can
gallery?
do
Hold on.
100%.